right. Hi, I'm Tony. I am in your district. We are representing the Leawood Elementary PTO. And you mentioned K-12 education, which obviously is very important to us. And what we're seeing is budget slashing all over the place, and we are having to supplement for that. I'm just wondering if you guys can just give us any like general information, like what are the conversations that are happening, and like what should we be prepared for?
I'm the treasurer for our PTO, and so I know when we spoke to, very recently spoke to our administration, it was 21% from last year. That's how much our school budget was cut at the administrative level. So we're being asked to supplement 21% of the school budget this year.
How would you,
Yeah.
sorry. I started off in PTA, so, no, I feel like this is a more appropriate question to, first things first, I think we have been fighting hard to get special education fully funded, and one of the problems is that when it comes to the rest of the state, they don't see this as much of a problem for them and their districts. Because the way that the numbers simply work is that, us in our districts, and I don't like to do a lot of us and them, a Johnson County versus rural Kansas thing, but when you have a higher population, you also have a higher population of students who need special education. And keep in mind that special ed includes gifted education. There were a number of years ago when people were trying to carve that out. And it's like, yeah, that's cute. But Johnson County responded pretty much in kind. And so that's one of the main issues is that, first of all, at the state level, the majority of people are not representing Johnson County. And so you're not going to see that much of a push for it. But Representative Poskin, who is not only your representative, but also serves on the K-12 budget, will really be able to get more into the nitty gritty. So let me pass this on to her so that she can really drill down.
Well, thanks. And it can be very confusing because you hear people say that K-12 is fully funded. And the issue is that there are two formulas in statute, not just one. One is fully funded, and that is the general education formula that was approved by the Supreme Court. And that's where getting your friends out, talking to everybody that you know about the constitutional amendment that is on the ballot Tuesday. You've got to get people out and tell them to vote no. If we elect our Supreme Court justices, they will be able to put the money behind the people who will not, in fact, support a general education formula that meets the constitutional requirements of adequate and equitable. So that's huge, and that is something that you can talk to everybody that you know about. Make sure that you turn people out to vote no. On Tuesday if you haven't already. So that's something that's really important. The second piece is that there's a special education formula, and it requires that we reimburse school districts 92% of the excess cost of special education. And every child with an IEP is required to get every service on that IEP, not just from the federal, but it is a moral responsibility. We don't want that to change in any way, shape, or form. Every child deserves an appropriate education. So the problem is that the last time that the legislature funded special ed at 92% was in 2011. We're down to 64, 65% reimbursement instead of the 92%, and that's where your cuts are coming in. That's where your property taxes are going up because the localities are trying to make up the deficit that the state is not doing. That special education formula was not part of the Gannon lawsuit that brought us fully funded education. And so the Supreme Court retained jurisdiction over that, which means that they followed the legislature and made them fund that formula because they've proven that they wouldn't. The other thing that I would really urge you to do is get out there and find candidates who are going to support public education. Every candidate out there says they're going to support education, but they don't say public education. We need you to get out and knock doors, volunteer, donate, do everything you can to get folks like Brian Mober in, get Allison Hoagland back into the legislature, Sherry Giebler out over in Olathe. We've got a lot of candidates. We can flip a lot of seats and make sure. The other very important thing is that formula that's quote unquote fully funded right now, it expires in 2027. So this new legislature, every seat in the House, 125, are up for re-election, and those are the people who are going to be voting for the new formula. And that committee has been meeting for over a year, and guess what? They haven't said a peep about what they plan to do. Because if you knew what the Republican plan was for public education, you would not vote for a single Republican House member in this entire state. So that is my long but very important answer to that question. Thank you so much for being here today, you guys.
Can I just to confirm, so like, what I'm hearing is that their goal is slash public education.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, not only to slash public education, but to increase tax dollars going to private schools.
Right.
So they are trying to reverse that. And, you know, it is in our Constitution that, that public school funds can't be in the hands of religious sects and SECTS.
No.
And just, I mean, this day, you gotta, I mean, it's not quite clear.
A library is a center of free speech.
Correct. So anyway, and the way they've gotten around that with school choice is to put it in the hands of parents. And so one of the things that they have been trying to do the entire time, since the tax credit scholarship was passed in 2014, which does pass tax dollars to private school tuition, is expand that beyond just quote unquote low income children in our lowest performing districts. They are trying to make it universal and have been. They've tried to expand it every year. And the good news, because I like to have good news every once in a while, is that this last year is the first time since 2014 that the Republicans have failed to expand that tax credit or to amend that original 2014 law. So that's a win. But we need everybody to turn out in this election and to make sure that we break the supermajority and that we elect a pro-public education governor.
Good morning, I'm Senator Cindy Holscher. Thank you for being here. My apologies for being late. I had a little bit of a late night last night, so wasn't moving too fast today after the debate last night. So, again, thank you for being here. It's been a busy time, and you know, as Marilyn alluded to, or basically pointed out, every election year, pro-public education's on the ballot, and as well as voting rights. Reproductive health care access is on the ballot in terms of who we elect with these House reps, and as well as the amendment that's there. So the short message I give people in terms of that amendment, if you voted no in August of 2022, you gotta come back and do it again. Additionally, the other message I give people, vote yes for Cindy, vote no on the amendment. So that's an easy way to remember it too. So thank you for being here. Oh, yes.
That's our Vanna.
I think while I search for the next question, I'll point out from Maryland's district, like south and around, we have a swath of Moms for Liberty candidates, which Maryland has pointed out before their goal is to have 0 children in public schools. So this isn't just a Western Kansas problem. This is a circle around Johnson County problem. And it's really something you have to watch. These whole, I worked with Governor Kelly. I heard the best explanation of that. If by work you mean went to the same building, yes, that is correct. So next question.
Just to piggyback on what people have said, I would like to see more support in that realm of special education. It is extremely hard. I'm a teacher, a special ed teacher, early childhood, so I have the babies that are coming in, and it is extremely hard to find help, and because of the funding issues, you know, we can't pay staff appropriately, especially the paras. And my father had to come out of retirement to come to my classroom to be a para for a year because my classroom, we couldn't find anybody to come in. This is so inappropriate. It's ridiculous. And I do not understand. For the youngest kids, that don't have a voice and can't vote. And for the community not to support special education is so morally corrupt. It's sick. And then to try to, and then my additional ask is to help support teachers through Capers. Capers 3 is a joke.
It is. Yeah.
It's sick.
It's an insult.
It's sick.
It is.
And I don't understand, the tiered levels. People, if you call Capers and ask about Capers 3, they can't even explain the formularies. I mean, I call and they're like, well, you'll be lucky if you can get 2 or 3 years out of that money. You definitely need to have additional help and support for that. I am working full-time as a teacher, and that Capers account for me, for working, I think 11 years already in Kansas, is only at $50,000.
Wow.
If you look at the Able savings accounts, I have more in my Able saving account because I'm also disabled. I have more in that in fewer years than I do in my Capers account, which I've had for 11 years. Once again, a very sad commentary on how Kansas views teachers and the attitude that they have and value of teachers and support staff. So if there's anything you can do to have another discussion about Capers, I would implore you to do so, because I think so many people don't even realize that. I mean, my dad basically said, I'm gonna have to get another job after I retire to make it work. So it's sick.
I can speak to that a little bit. So when Capers 3 was first put into place, this was allegedly to make the retirement system.
I'm sorry, you go.
I'm sorry.
I have no
I
idea what
apologize.
Capers 3 was.
I am so sorry. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to.
Yeah, that's okay. If we could just say what that is real quick.
Yes, so we will put that into context for those who don't know. So Capers is the Kansas Public Employee Retirement System. And so this is for all Kansas public employees. And in fact, it is also a retirement system that goes for county employees as well. So I was a county employee for a number of years. And so I also have a Capers account, have one as a state employee. And so it is different tiers, so it kind of depends on when you're, sorry, I'm taking a while to explain this, but different tiers, so it depends on when you start. So people who started, I think Capers 1, which was the system that, was the baseline. I mean, basically, what we have seen here is a trend in a lot of state governments, but especially in Kansas, where it used to be that if you were a state employee or a public employee, you sort of made the contract that yes, your pay will be a little bit less, but your benefits will be good and you will be essentially a public servant. But we used to take care of and honor our public servants. We have seen in about the past 10, 15, 20 years really, a incredible devaluing of all public servants. You'd be amazed at what this has done to Topeka's local economy, because as those jobs were slashed, all of a sudden you didn't have, Topeka is a government town. It is our state capital. So you didn't have a lot of those folks who were, just kind of working their mid-level government jobs, again, doing their service to the state, making that sacrifice by not going to the private sector. So then, as we had issues with Capers solvency, right, because you have larger generations that have retired, you have fewer generations that are putting in, you also have major tax cuts that are going into place that are doing damage to that. And again, that is by design, because when you have heard her story, when you heard her talking about what she's dealing with, and about what her father is dealing with, my friends, this is what small government looks like. It looks like people suffering financially, doing jobs that we all hold this in high esteem, but I mean, we as a greater society hold incredibly high esteem the people that we trust with our children who have disabilities and special needs. We should be lifting those folks that we are trusting with those children up even higher. But what we've seen is this major trend. So when we talk about the tiers of CAPERS 1, 2, and 3, there was a restructuring. So CAPERS 1 tends to get the largest amount of benefits, CAPERS 2 is a little bit less, and now CAPERS 3 has been in effect, I want to say, for
2015.
yeah, since 2000, yep. And CAPERS 3 was put into effect in 2015, which was when the budget was in terrible turmoil due to the Brownback tax cuts that were made in late 2012, but implemented in 13. So a lot of that is what happens is that if you do a march to zero income tax, you have to cut somewhere because income tax brings in a lot. So then where do the cuts get made? At areas that are perceived as unpopular or seen as leeches off of the system. So again, we used to honor our public servants. Now there is this general disrespect. And what's the way that you show the biggest amount of disrespect? By not paying people what they're worth and by not providing reasonable benefits. I feel like I've talked forever, but does that make sense a little bit more the way that I put it? So yeah, sometimes, you got folks that have been in here for a while and will use like acronyms and stuff like that. So there you go.
Thank you for your work. It's wrong. It's just absolutely wrong what's been done. And what I will tell you is it's a very small group of us in Topeka working to just stop the total collapse of public education. It's us and a few other folks. Because every year, the far right brings forward bills to defund, brings forward vouchers to transfer money from public to private. And it's very much their goal to destroy public education. So like I said, it's a small group of us that's been pushing back, and it's not great. I mean, we have adequately funded general ed, but special ed hasn't been fully funded since 2011.
And I'm also very concerned about the IDD waivers. The
That's
waivers.
intellectual and developmental disability.
Yeah, I mean, that waiver is years, I think, is it still 8 or 9 or 10 years for families, and that's just another sick.
And the fact of the matter is, those things could get funded. Special ed could get funded.
Yes.
But what we have seen over the past several years is the continuation of tax breaks to billionaires and corporations. And there's only so much money to work with. So this is what I will tell you, I'm working my tail off to make sure I win my race because of Ty Masterson is in office, our schools are gone, we lose voting rights, we'll be in something worse than the Brownback experiment. But I'm also working hard to make sure these folks who have challengers to the races that they're reelected. Want to make sure Brian gets elected, as well as several of these other folks that are running, because it's what we have with this supermajority right now. The MAGA extremist as a supermajority, it's unsustainable. We can't keep in this mode because every session they're chipping away at democracy, they're chipping away at everything else. And Stephanie's right, when we're talking small government, that just means people at the top get what they need, nobody else does.
And as a person with a disability, I don't like to be out in public because of my situation, but I rely on mail-in voting. And so when they jacked that and cut off the 3 days mail-in period, that is so frustrating to me. And so
And it's an all-out attack on so many different areas is the problem, is the thing. And, in terms of the Senate, there's 40 senators, there's only 9 of us that are Democrats. I can't remember the numbers in the House, that breakdown.
37.
37.
525.
Yeah, so like I said, we are doing everything we can to push back against those bad policies. A few of them get through, but I'm determined to help flip some of these seats.
I'll ask a question of the panel. 2 years ago, I knocked 1,900 doors and I'm closing in on door number 1,000 for this cycle. I know. And those doors were all over Johnson County, Republicans and Democrats. I never had one person favor not fully funding special ed, like jaws dropped. Has anybody on this panel had an actual citizen they talked to support this travesty?
We never.
So we need to make sure our voters know who is supporting these terrible policies. I mean, it's only in Topeka where you have people say, they will honestly say, special ed is overfunded.
Yeah.
Mhm.
They've never
It's
said.
And they
Yeah,
don't
it's-
understand the overlap of general ed and special ed.
Well, a number of them
They work
have,
together.
a number of them haven't even been in a school building in decades. And I
Yeah.
mean, this is a statistic I share, 40 senators. Out of that group of 40, this was as of 2024, only 6 of us had had children in public schools within the past decade. The rest either sent their children to private, or they homeschooled, or they were of an age, they just haven't been in a public school building. So you literally have people that have no connection to public schools whatsoever, making decisions, and they're hearing from the lobbyists of the voucher movement that every single day, those lobbyists are there telling legislators things like, your teachers are indoctrinating, they're going in boys and coming out girls, there's litter boxes. I mean, those literally are the crazy things that the voucher lobbyists tell legislators. And again, number of them haven't been in a school building in years. So I think that, maybe that's a critical question to ask somebody who's running for office. You been in a school building recently? Do you know what's going on there? Do you see all the work that our teachers are doing and our paras, that they're underpaid?
Although to be fair, there are some that I would not want within 5 feet.
True. Yeah, there is that.
Next question?
Well, I thank you all for showing up, and I've been here enough to know that everyone at this table is awesome. I just I wondered your opinion about the recent Wyandotte County mail-in vote brouhaha. Just wondered some thoughts about that.
Can I say something? Would you like to tag on to that question a little bit?
Jennifer Day, who's running for Secretary of State, posted a really good video last night. And she posted it from, I have been out talking to all the election people. We have a safe system. We have people who are working so hard to make things happen. But she said, we are human and mistakes get made. And in Wyandotte County, the return ballot, when you put your mail ballot in and send it back, had the wrong address to go back to the election office. And so those votes are being returned to the voter as undeliverable. They had an emergency meeting yesterday in Wyandotte County. There's a huge push right now to address this. There is also a problem in Lynn County. As of Tuesday, they had not sent out any of their mail ballots because they had a printer failure. Jennifer did not know if it was a printer failure for the envelope or for the ballot. If it's a printer failure, I have to tell you, because we were in Miami County, which was more rural, we printed 57 different ballots when we were putting it together during COVID, because we mailed a bunch out because of all the different precincts and wards. So it's not a matter of you print a ballot for a county, because the representatives are different, the school districts are different, that kind of thing. Jennifer said, this is being addressed as quickly as it can. She said, I know people are being honorable about this, and this was simply a mistake. There was good news that the court ruled that the 3-day grace period is constitutional and can continue. So that's a little bit of a help, but Jennifer had such a calm, nice way of explaining the system is not broken, this is not voter suppression. It was very helpful to me.
Well, like walk the mic, I will tell you, take your ballot to a secure box. Do not put it in the mail. Do not count on that 3-day grace period.
The ballot box is actually
Right out the front door. I just want to tag on to that, that also as of at least 2 days ago, the Kansas Secretary of State's office, where it's supposed to list where the ballot drop boxes actually are, said this will be updated shortly.
Yeah.
The Secretary of State doesn't have the ballot box location. So I would say that Jennifer Day has been a fabulous, she's worked the polls forever. She is a Democrat running for Secretary of State, and I'm having a fundraiser for her at my house on August 27th. And watch my social media and I'll put it out there. It would be really helpful for Kansas if we can elect Jennifer Day instead of Pat Proctor, who has been chair of the elections committee for a couple of years now and is behind a lot of the really, really terrible legislation that is actually voter suppression. So thank you guys, and thank you for the question, both of you.
And
for the
also
extra-
Wyandotte County, the county, the parts of the county, the parts of the county that do not have transportation readily, do not have drop boxes. Argentine, Rosedale, there's another one, do not even have a drop box.
Yes. So to piggyback off of what everyone has said, and thank you so much for educating everyone on the progress of that. I've been trying to keep up with it. So I serve on the House Elections Committee. I've been on that committee since I began in 2022, and it has only gotten progressively worse. And this is one of the committees I think people have started to pay more attention to this last year. There's a good group of us Democrats who serve on the committee who will not put up with Pat Proctor's BS at all.
I can explain.
Yes, so Pat Proctor is the chair of the House Elections Committee. He represents part of Leavenworth. He is currently running for Kansas Secretary of State. He essentially used the election committee this entire past year not to do much in way of protecting people's right to vote or making sure that it was easier or fixing issues that, we had concerns about. He used it as a podium, as a stumping spot for his race for Secretary of State. This man is dangerous, and I need you all to know that. If you go back and watch these election committee hearings, you will see exactly what he plans for the entire state. And he wants to make it much harder for people all across the state to vote, namely people in marginalized and underserved communities. He has bought into election conspiracy after election conspiracy over and over and over again. And he spits that misinformation not only in committee, but also from the well. And the way that he had committees set up, and I really need you guys to know this, he would have it set up so that he would have a bunch of conspiracy theorists come in to support these bills that he wanted to get through, and then gave very little time to the advocates on the ground who were actually doing the voter work, right? He would yell at them from the dais and tell them that they were being disrespectful to him and kick them out of the meeting. Now we're talking about groups like the ACLU, and the ACLU has an entire voter protection program. They know what they're talking about, but he wanted to actively remove them consistently. And so I think that this is one of the races, it's not as sexy, people aren't paying attention to it as much. But the issues with the 3-day grace period, the issues with making it more difficult for people to register to vote, to making, telling people across the state that we've got individuals who are not citizens voting, which is, it's not even really true. There are a handful, maybe, across the entire state of Kansas. And those are being dealt with by the Secretary of State's office. It is just, it's beyond the pale. And I need you all to pay very extra attention to that. We have been sounding the alarm about that individual in particular, but also the issues with elections in Kansas for a long time. And like I said, there's a good group of 4 of us on that committee who fight tooth and nail to protect everyone's right to vote. But if Pat Proctor gets into office, we're really gonna have some very serious issues. And I think that we all need to be screaming that from the rooftops, so. Who's next?
More questions?
Another one.
Okay, so I would also like your thoughts regarding the, I don't know exactly what the right word is, but the fact that the Kansas party was told they could not promote federal candidates, and so there was a debate canceled, which I had on my calendar, and I don't like to cancel any social type events on my calendar. And, that they had to reprint the walk cards and all. But now when I read the Kansas Reflector, it almost sounds like that was completely bogus. That ruling or whatever you want to call it.
So it wasn't even a ruling per se. It was an attorney within what used to be the Kansas Ethics Commission is now I forgot what the Public Disclosure Commission. A recently hired attorney that has made the ruling that a law that we passed 2 years ago effectively says that no county party can promote, endorse, spend any money for any federal candidate. And so they asked questions that was, can we put up a sign for Sharice Davids on our window? Nope, you can't do that. But that doesn't cost us any money. Doesn't matter, you can't do that. Can we do X, Y, and Z? No, you can't do that. So you're right, the Johnson County Democrats, and I assume the Republicans, had to reprint all of their walk cards so that there was no information on with regards to any federal candidates. Johnson County Democrats spent $15,000 on the previous set of walk cards that all had to be trashed to stop any walking, any solicitation for a week's time period. On a personal level, I don't believe that the law says what they are interpreting the law to say. I believe that county parties absolutely can do this because this was not only not what the law says, but not what the legislature's intention was whatsoever when we passed this 2 years ago. There was no discussion about this particular point. That said, there's an opinion, and without a court approval, we can't go against that opinion without serious financial ramifications that could come into play. They could be fined on a daily basis or per incident for every single time that you violate this ruling or this opinion. So in order to do that, you would need to go into a court of law and you would need to have a judicial opinion that says that this opinion is invalid, here is what the law actually stands for. And until that happens, this is what we're doing. No support, endorsement, mention of any federal candidates at a county level.
But you think that will happen eventually?
I'd like to think so.
Can I speak to
Certainly,
this?
yes, absolutely, please do.
I'm a Senate district leader. I serve on the executive committee for Johnson County Democrats. I have seen the correspondence between KPDC and various individuals. First of all, our executive director of the Johnson County Democrats had a conversation with a woman in the office named Denise. I can remember that name, that's why. And this was on the day after filing day, on June 2nd. She said we can continue as we've always done with our walk card. And so then on June 8th, after the walk cards were printed and most of us had them counted out and ready to go to doors and a couple had already gone out, we were told that
we couldn't do it because not every single candidate, there are 11 people running for Kansas Senate, for instance, or for US Senate. And we did not have all of them on the card. So we were told, well, you can't because you don't have all the candidates on that card. So then Deanne Mitchell, she has an email that says this, if we put all the candidates on the card, can we do that? And the reply from this attorney said, it doesn't matter if you have all the candidates on the card, you still can't put federal candidates on your card. And so that's the second answer we got. The third answer, so we also took everything out of the office, scrubbed the website, there was no visibility for any federal candidates. And people started noticing that the Republicans still had all the stuff on their website. And so independent people, not anyone official, just people like the people in this room, emailed the KPDC and said, how come the Republicans can do that and we can't? And the first reply was, well, if you had all the candidates on there, you could do it. But because you don't, we have an email from the same person that told Deanne the exact opposite days earlier. And then the latest thing is that we might be able to do it if we also put the Republicans on. If we have all the US Senate candidates, all the congressional candidates from both parties. But this entire time, the Republicans have never been told that they have to take the stuff off. And I don't know, I would love if somebody could tell me this, because I have not heard, I don't think the Republicans have a voter guide to take anything off of or to reprint. Last year, they didn't have the money to print one. And I don't know if they do this year, if they're just saving the money for the general. But I have not heard of a single person who has seen a Republican voter guide anywhere in this county.
Oh,
Yeah, I can say my classmate who works for Josh Hawley. They've never heard from the Republican precinct chair at all. Democrat is always there, but not the Republican. So they haven't, and I would think he'd be in the know. Any more on that?
Do you feel like that is kind of reflective of the fact that they've just given up on Johnson County and said, we'll give up on Douglas, Sedgwick, and Johnson, and we'll just worry about the other, however many counties.
I think it's actually.
I'm not educated enough to know how many.
My
counties
own
are in the
personal
state, but-
theory is that it's a reaction to our success last year. We won 93% of the races we had candidates in the race on. And if you look at, Cindy mentioned that there are 40 Senate districts in Kansas. They all have a roughly similar population. All are part of 10 of those who are in Johnson County. So we have very concentrated population here. My Senate district, Cindy's Senate district, is the same. If you start in Hayes and go to Nebraska and Colorado, the same population. So us turning out voters in Cindy's Senate district, heavily turning out Democrats, can counter the results of 17 counties in northwest Kansas.
So as someone who held office for 6 years as a Republican, I've just finished up my 8th year as a Democrat, and someone who was, look, if I ever run for something bigger, I'll put on the postcards anyway, is the former chair of the Johnson County Young Republicans. I was chair of the Johnson County Young Republicans in, I want to say 2008 and 2009, so it's been a minute. But so this used to be a Republican stronghold. One of the reasons why Johnson County is no longer a Republican stronghold is because the Republican Party aggressively moved towards the right and started being sort of derisive to what they would call limousine liberals or country club Republicans or Rockefeller Republicans. As someone who represents a huge contingent of that kind of Republican, and I care about those folks. I care about every single person I represent. But by abandoning that demographic, it led to sort of a trend in suburbia where you start seeing more people who used to really identify with the more moderate Republican, pro-public education. Any of you who've been around, you remember people like John Brattle and Terry Huntington and, Lisa Benlin back when she was a Republican before she became a Democrat. A lot of this happens up here, right? Now, if we look in this current election cycle, I'm still on a lot of their mailing lists. So the Republican Party is having a watch party, and there used to be like two huge separate watch parties, one for the moderates and one for the conservatives, and they would be at the DoubleTree and the Marriott respectively on primary night. And these would be, pretty, like hors d'oeuvres and, drinks, sometimes open bars, sometimes cash. This year, they are having just a potluck at their office where they will be providing iced tea. And this is not indicative of any sort of, teetotaling thing. This is a budgetary issue. It is also worth noting that I think out of the Johnson County House Democratic delegation, there are 14 of us, 17. So 17. And so I think only 5 of us have opponents. And, so for instance, please support me. I'm taking my race very seriously. I have the same opponent that ran against me 2 years ago, who just, there has not been a concerted effort to recruit. But this is also due to what we see as a power vacuum at the state level. So right now you have the Senate president, who is the highest ranking Republican in the Senate, who is running for governor. You have the Speaker of the House, who is the highest ranking Republican in the House, running for insurance commissioner, which is also a statewide office. So especially with the Speaker of the House running for higher office and sort of termed out from being Speaker, we don't know who the next Speaker is going to be. I heard all kinds of great tea about who could be possibly running when I was at a conference with my colleagues this last week, but we do not know who the next person is in power in the House. So although they have a campaign committee, their recruitment engine is at a very weak point. Now, after they nominate whoever it is they're going to nominate for governor, you will see more movement. They'll either, the Republicans will either nominate a strong pro-education candidate. There still is one. Any Republicans in the room, I would recommend that you vote for my friend and past colleague, Vicki Schmidt. I served with her. She does support public education emphatically. So if you got an R next to your name, you're welcome here. We love our Republican friends because you also make up part of our community. But in any case, so because of that power vacuum, because of a lack of money, because of discounting pro-education and pro-choice Republicans, which make up frankly, the large amount of people who have money. I thought Republicans were into that. But they really have abandoned these suburban areas. But their big miscalculation, of course, is that Johnson County's population has been growing exponentially since the 1950s. And a lot of it is that the jobs are here. Then you get grandparents moving here because their kids are here. We are a healthcare destination. So, our past county chair, Ed Eilert, lived in Emporia, but when their first son was born with special needs, him and his wife Jan moved here to Johnson County because that is where the services were and where their son could get the best education. So it's not just for money or fancy schools, it's for medical necessity that people are moving up here. And so because of that, you see this population shift, and then you see a lot of gerrymandering. So there's a reason it'll sound strange, right? When we think of how big our population is and why are there so few Democrats or so few moderate Republicans, because we used to have a major coalition. But when redistricting was done, the conservative Republicans were in power and the legislators draw the maps, and whoever draws the maps draws them to such a way that they will win. So one thing they tried to do, for instance, there's a tactic called packing and cracking. And so I used to have a much redder district, and they made Representative Poskin's district, they gave my reddest precincts away to her and gave her bluest precincts away to me. So now my district got significantly bluer at her expense. Now, she's unopposed, I still got a guy, but hey, but also, competition is good. It's currently a free country and we have to earn this. The seat does not belong to me, it belongs to the people. And so it is with all of our seats, from, precinct committee all the way up to the governor. It's not ours, it's yours. And so, yeah, I'm kind of ramble.
I just want to give a shout out to volunteers, because that is part of the reason why we have had this growth here in Johnson County. As Stephanie mentioned, the Republican Party moved further right, but we were able to get organized And that has made a huge difference. If you have knocked doors, made phone calls, or sent out postcards, would you please raise your hand? Thank you. Thank you for doing that. That's what has made a difference. My first election in 2016, we didn't have precinct leaders. We didn't have Senate district leaders. I mean, that first race, it was me, my daughter Sarah, a couple of friends. Linda came on board, knocking doors. And then we had a few more. We recruited some more people and some more people. And since that time, we've established a network of volunteers and precinct leaders and Senate district leaders to help us be organized so that when it's time for the elections, we have people who can reach out. And in an 8-year period, we went from just 5 elected Democrats to 17. That's huge growth. Now, other parts of the state lost, and unfortunately at a larger rate than what we gained. But there are more seats out there we can pick up. So what I tell people, every time I'm at a town hall or a meeting, find 5 friends. And between now and the election, I need you to find 5 friends and remind them to vote. Because so many people just get busy and they forget about it. Every election cycle, about a week before election day, I'll send out a text to about 200 people and I'll say, have you voted yet? It's an important election coming up. Half those folks will respond and say, oh crap, there's an election?
Yeah.
It's on our minds, but not everybody operates that way. Some people are working 2 and 3 jobs. Some people are busy shuttling kids around. It's not on their mind. So that group that responds, not realizing there was an election, my response back to them is, yes, this is going to be a very critical election. What do you need from me? Most of them will then say, where do I vote? Who do I vote for? I mean, that's the power you have in terms of your circle of friends. And we all have a group of friends out there that aren't consistent voters. Just give them that reminder. Find 5 friends or be an overachiever, do 10 or 15.
I'm gonna piggyback just a little bit off of one quick thing that Stephanie had talked about, which is, I don't know who's a Republican out here in the audience, but that's kind of what I want to say. Just because all of us up here are Democrats does not make this a Democratic town hall.
Right.
Everybody is welcome. This is an open town hall. If you are an independent, a Republican, a Libertarian, Green Party, Constitutionalist, or you don't know where you are on the political spectrum.
Reform is also an official party of the state.
Fantastic. As long as you are respectful, this is an open conversation for everybody. And that's how we get the information out and how we have dialogue with our constituents. I've tried previously to have town halls with my Republican colleagues. They don't have them in Johnson County. I can't get them, and so here we are here because it seems like the Democrats are the only ones that want to have the open conversation. But I'm happy to have a conversation with anybody across the board. So thank you all very much for coming here today.
Thank you,
I hate to leave, but I have to go vote. So.
Please don't forget to do that. And for those of you that are curious, if you want to vote, you can't vote tomorrow, but you can vote today at, let's see, so I think the closest one to here is probably Hilltop Recreation Center. I am not as familiar with south of 435. Can anyone say the cross streets for that?
143rd Street and Metcalf.
So 143rd and Metcalf. There is, if you feel like going north, then I just call it the old King Louis building. Sorry, not sorry. Yeah, exactly. At 80, basically at 87th and Metcalf. And further north is the northeast offices, which is on Lamar Street, just to the north of Shawnee Mission Parkway. So it'll be on the left side of the street. You will be able to see them by all of the clusters of illegal signs that are placed. The polls will be open today until I believe 7 p.m. And then no voting tomorrow, and then Monday, so let's say if you have to go out of town for work or you have to work on Tuesday, you can actually vote at any of those locations from 8 a.m. to noon. And then on Tuesday, which is election day, how many of you are election day voters? Okay, so what I would recommend you all do is go to johnsoncountyelectionoffice.com jocoelection.org, I believe. Yeah, jocoelection.org. And it will have a place where you can click and you can find your, not only just put in your address and your date of birth and your name, and it will show you your sample ballot, so you can look at that and, do the research on the candidates. And then it will tell you where your polling place is. So for the day of the election. So it's always good. Sometimes mine switch around, especially when it comes to the primary, they'll consolidate them. So make sure you're making a plan to vote on election day, you know where you're going, and you know what is on the ballot. It'll take you about a good 20 minutes to read through the amendment language. Again, the reason why we are urging a no vote on that amendment is that first, an amendment has to go through the legislature first. And so we know that that ballot language that you are seeing is confusing by design. And the rule usually is, if a politician is trying to make things more complicated instead of less complicated, we all know what that means. It means that they're trying to pull something over on you. And you guys are too smart for that, and you don't stand for that kind of nonsense, so I would urge a no vote. Linda?
Okay.
I guess we
May I
got up here.
make a excuse me, I'm sorry. If you go to the election office, they have in there the exact wording of both propositions. It's clear language, yes means yes, no means no.
Okay, there's only one, we only have one constitutional amendment. I will say, because somebody else does have the room at 10 and we want to be good citizens, our next two town halls will be the first Saturday of the month at 9:15 at Oak Park Library, which is right by Oak Park Mall off of 95th Street. And we welcome our constituents and other constituents of all parties. As Dan would say, we are here to serve the people. So thank you for coming.